Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I am bringing you two guests, Dayne and Indi. I am so grateful that I have met these beautiful souls who have done the work, done the research, done the experiment, and realized that it would be silly not to share their knowledge with more people. That is why recently they have launched their podcast, which is Living Holistically with Dayne and Indi. So I have brought them on for them to share what you can expect from the podcast. During this interview, we talked more than just about their podcast. We talked about health, we talked about self-awareness, we talked about living consciously, we talked about overall well-being, we talked about the environment, we talked about so many things. Because we had such a wonderful chat, and because they have such great knowledge and wisdom to share with so many people, there will be two parts to this interview. I'm so excited for you to explore and learn that there are other ways that you can live your amazing life. So
you encourage people to live more consciously though?
As you said, one thing is in terms of where you spend your money. So although it's quite convenient for all of us to go to the supermarket and have the brands that we've had since we were growing up with that we like, it's also not a particularly ethical business in terms of, well, you could look at it from so many angles, but just even the way that they pay the people that produce the food and just the types of food. You know, there's only one aisle that's technically they call health food. The rest is just not. It's okay. You're basically. I know it's gonna probably sound harsh, but I heard it recently from someone I really respect, and it's so true. You're basically paying for something that's making you, ultimately unhealthy. Like it's degrading your body, which is again not an act of self-love, because self-love would be putting, health food into your body. And I work at a health food store, and I can say this pretty confidently that probably about at least 60 to 80% of stuff in the health food store isn't really healthy either. It's organic, but it's all that really highly processed packaged food. And it sort of has this, it's almost like this false sense of security. People go into a health food store, and because they're buying it, and maybe because it says organic or vegan, it's providing that sense of false security that, will be healthy for them.
Wow, I want to ask so many questions. But I don't want to ask it. I feel like we're gonna go down a rabbit hole here.
Yeah, we are. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess I just want to remind people that you have a choice. So like, you choose what you put into your body, and I really like how you said that it happens gradually. Like the Rome wasn't built in one day. Okay, so be patient with your journey. And so, what would you suggest, Dayne? What would be the two tips?
Yeah, so I guess, again, like just echoing quickly on what Indi says, I guess the how for people to take away, I guess, farmers markets, that would be perfect, especially supporting local organic farmers. And that would be a place for people to go wherever they are in the world, just trying to support that local organic farming side of things. And at health food stores as well, they also have the organic produce. So that's key for how. For me, I guess a really important one from my aspect, this is a very masculine approach as well, is it's almost auditing your life and auditing where you're, again, with what Indi said, where you're spending your money. And so we actually track. So we track our expenses. So we know how much we're spending on food, on bills, who we spend our bills with. So that and our banking as well. And so all those things about all the businesses we're with, but also where we spend our money, which is really key. So
and where we keep it.
And where we keep it, yeah. And so I'm really big on tracking and sort of creating some sort of like a system, at least wherever that system looks like for each person. It's very different.
What do you mean by where you keep it?
So I guess a lot of people don't consider what their money in their bank account and also their super fund is being invested in. So this has been brought up a lot quite recently, but a few years ago, it really got my attention, because if, your money's not just sitting there in your account, it's not literally like sitting somewhere just chilling. It's actually being used by the financial institution to be reinvested, so they can make a return and for their shareholders. And so a lot of people weren't very happy to find out that it was being invested in the very projects that they were, down there protesting, or like the Adani, mine and fracking. So a lot of those big, unenvironmentally friendly projects generally get backed by big banks. So that was one of the things I started to consider of moving it over to somewhere that was really, really ethical, didn't ever invest in any of these sorts of projects or industries. Also gambling, I think, is one that's a really big ethical conflict. So not being invested in that industry, not being invested in, tobacco is a big one. What else? Just really anything that was against the ethics of looking after the community and looking after the environment. Yeah. So Bank Australia actually came up in Australia as probably the one that fit the criteria the most, as it's owned just by the customers. So it's a community bank owned by everyone that, has bank accounts there. So not for shareholders. So they're not their interests aren't to invest in things just to make a profit for the shareholders, which can often be a conflicting interest for banks. Whereas I found when I was actually working in a bank, one of the big four, that their interest, although they would say it was for the people, they were often making decisions that were based on driving the shareholder, the share price higher, and making a lot of compromising decisions just based on that, because that really, at the end of the day, seemed to be the number one thing, even though on the surface they would say it's for the customers, it's for the employees.
Thank you for bringing that up. I hope that for those who are listening and watching, you're already blown away for what are the things that you don't know. Because, I have many friends who have told me this already. And, don't be blown away how little you know. But that's why you live and learn, right? But I love the tracking thing. It's amazing. What would be another tip?
I guess invest, and again, this is cheesy as well, but invest in yourself in knowledge and being open to learning the knowledge. So if that's books or podcasts, or spend your money wisely. That whole tracking thing is great because you know where your money's going. But are you spending money on mindless entertainment often? Entertainment can be great and can be enjoyable, and it can be an enjoyable experience that we enjoy, but whether that's coming from a place of escapism or not. But investing into books, into buying books and learning from different areas of life or interests, whatever that looks like for you. Reading's great, so investing in books, investing in listening to podcasts. There's plenty of podcasts out there that just give so much good information, and just practicing discernment around what information you're taking on board, and taking on board information from as many areas and angles as possible, and not just from your own confirmation bias. So if I'm say very gung-ho for my certain way of diet, that's like the only area I look at those things to confirm that, rather than being open to exploring every aspect and every angle and everyone's opinions on what they believe to be so important as well. So that discernment part, I think that discernment naturally comes from being open and exploring and learning from so many different areas in life. And then once you realize how much you learn, that you realize you know so little, so therefore you are more open. So it sort of goes around itself. So I've read, as my ego likes to share, I've read over 100 books and I've listened to all these podcasts, but the more I've listened to it, the more I realize I don't know that much at all. And so therefore that keeps me so open to learning new things constantly, because the stuff that I've learned, I had no idea. And I was open to learning that, which allows me to learn more and be open to more areas of life, and just keeps going and going. So I think that whole investment into your personal self, and just really whether that's your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, all that as well, just really putting the time in for yourself, and not in a selfish way, but putting the time in for yourself to evolve yourself, to become the better version for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for the world. And then you'll be able to find your passion, your true purpose, why you were sent here, or why you were brought here, and why you are here on this earth right now, to deliver to your gifts, your unique talents and gifts to others out there.
you guys are so beautiful. I'm so grateful to be able to talk to you, honestly. Like, because you don't know what you don't know. And like, seriously, being open-minded is so important. And the way that you said, you know, you need to invest in yourself, like, seriously, if you don't take care of yourself, how the heck are you going to take care of those around you? I really, really love how you guys say support the local farmers part, because I just want people to think about it as a ripple effect, because it all comes back around. Like, you are helping a farmer who is growing amazing food for you, and it's also better for the planet. And yeah, it's like a circle. And with the tracking thing, for those people who might be struggling with their money, the tracking thing honestly would be so helpful. And I know it might be, for those people who might be young, like adolescents that are listening, it is never too early to track your money, because and it's also never too early to think about retirement, because then you would know how much you need and what exactly you will spend on, and etc. So thank you so much for those 4 tips, which is live consciously, you know, and know where you're spending your money, track your money, actually track your time too, by the way. And
so much can be wasted in sort of a mindless hole on Instagram or something.
Yeah.
So being conscious of those things too is definitely much better, and TV and everything.
So
We've said before, we try and keep it to a maximum of 4 nights a week that we're watching something, just to really be conscious of that we don't get carried away or something.
Yeah.
Because it's so much, you know, because we're working hard and we just want to relax and, you know, zone out.
Yes.
But, yeah.
I love it. Well, would you guys like to maybe suggest 2 podcasts that you would like people to listen to?
Definitely. I think it's Living 4D with Paul Chek.
Oh, I love Paul Chek.
Yeah, so he's again like a really good, like I said, I guess mentor and idol of mine, and learned a lot from him. He has a really good holistic approach to health as well. So yeah, Living 4D with Paul Chek is really cool. We get a lot of wisdom out of that. Some of the podcasts are quite long though, so if you have plenty of time, go for it. And the other one I would say, I mean, apart from Living Holistically, apart from our podcast,
and we didn't copy Paul Chek's title.
No, he copied us. Yeah, so Paul Chek's one, and what's another one that I feel like, because I've listened to so many over the years, and I feel what gives really good knowledge that I guess, because I when I went through my whole phase of like just binging podcasts, it was what I felt at the time was, so rather than telling someone to read this book, I didn't like to tell people what book to read, or even like say, "Oh, do this," because they're at a different stage in your life, any time in your life. So at that stage, I was really deep in, say, personal development. So I was listening to like Tony Robbins a lot, and I like Gary Vee, and that was really much like a huge part for me, that masculine energy. And then there's times when I just wanted to absorb like health knowledge. And so for health knowledge and like holistic health, Living 4D with Paul Chek, great. And for, I guess, trying to think, I'm subscribed to like 80 or 100 podcasts, I think. So what have I found like a benefit so much from that's really good in that space?
Or maybe a book.
Maybe a book, actually. Yeah, I read a lot of books, and so that's a good one.
Letting Go.
Yeah, that's a really good book, actually. Yeah, we've actually both read that. So Dr. David Hawkins' book called Letting Go. Nice. And so we both read that. I mean, which is really good.
Yeah, Letting Go: A Pathways to Surrender. So
wow, what a beautiful
very relevant for pretty much everyone.
Yes. There you go. For those who are listening and watching, please, have a look. You don't have to do it. It just
exactly.
There.
Yeah. Works on every aspect of your life, I think, as well.
Yeah. And for those who are listening and watching who might be older, in their maybe 40s and 50s, guess what? It's never too late. I actually spoke to this person. His name is Jamie, and he's 48, and he honestly show his vulnerability while we were talking, how he realized that he has, put on this mask that doesn't serve him anymore, and etc. I'm just like, wow, see, like, it's honestly never too late to be the better version of yourself. So you know how you guys are humans after all, right? So how do you get yourself out of the negative spiral?
That's a really good question. And I think it's something that we're both really familiar with, because we're human. And what usually happens is if we're not able to just, because I guess it's been different since being separate and also living together, but I'll talk about that. So usually we're able to pretty quickly give each other a pep talk, when the other one's feeling a little bit down or, overwhelmed. The other one's generally, able to feel really strong and lift the other person up. But, that's not always the case. So obviously you have to be able to be like, well, there's no one else that's, going to get me out of it and take responsibility. So there's a lot of different tools like EFT or tapping that have been instrumental when I've been feeling that way. And I know even in the moment, it's the hardest thing to do. But even if you just commit to doing a little bit and half-assing it, and a lot of you'll start to feel better, and it will be positive feedback, and then you might move on to a different emotion and be propelled to do more because you're feeling better. But the other thing that can be really helpful, if you don't even feel like, say you're really overwhelmed, and for me this often comes out in needing to release and bawl my eyes out, sometimes for hours, as Dayne knows. It's not really his go-to, but it's definitely mine. And it's really cathartic. Like, it feels great because it's one of the ways we release emotions. And if it's been building up and you're overwhelmed, it's just can feel so good. And it's just what you need to do. But one of the things that can really help to accelerate that release is to tap on the different acupressure points, because then that's also working on another energetic level and helping you to release those stuck or overwhelming emotions.
Yes.
And being kind to yourself. Like, it's so hard, and we need a lot of reminding, but being kind to yourself in that moment, and that having that really loving self and compassionate self-talk, because oftentimes we're making stories or we're being mean to ourselves, and you sort of have to take that step into that loving adult self. This is what someone that I'm learning a lot from, Dr. Margaret Paul, talks about, because often we're talking to ourselves from the wounded part where we're, making it at the end of the world, and we're criticizing ourselves. And, just in general, talking down to ourselves a lot of the time. So consciously stepping into that, what she calls the loving adult, and, speaking from that place that an adult would talk. If you were talking to a child, like, you wouldn't say to a child, "You're so stupid. Like, why would you do that?"
Some
if you're
people
talking
would,
from,
though.
yeah, no. But if we think about when we're from a place of not being frustrated and projecting onto that child, but coming from that loving, compassionate adult place where we can say, it's okay what you did. Like, it happens, we fall down, like, it's okay, we'll go do this, we'll take this loving step for ourselves or for you, and it'll be okay, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So also connecting with that, our higher self, and asking it, what is true in that, and what am I feeling, and really getting in touch with what's going on, and surrendering to the whole process as well. I think that's a big thing. A lot of the time when we get overwhelmed, it's trying to control it. We're in that place where we're just trying to control the situation, and we don't want to let go of either that expectation or how we wanted something to be, or a lot of the times an expectation of ourselves. So it's that surrendering of it that ends up releasing it.
So I take that you do tapping and pep talk for each other to get out of your negative spirals.
Another key one that I want to add, that's great too. And I think that we're so fortunate to have each other. So when we do get into like a negative state, the other one is usually really positive and it has the energy to be able to pull them out. But I think another really good thing too is that if one of us is in a negative sort of spiral, getting the other one to do movement as well. We found movement is key. So if you're usually when you're in a negative spiral, you'd be sort of like hunched and you maybe want to be like hide away and and just be small. And so we have a rebounder or some sort of movement, or whether it's a walk or a rebounding or some push-ups or something with movement, and maybe even some music as well. And that's like that,
because that's another way to move the energy.
Yeah, to shift sort of negative energy inside you as well. And so just having that shift and having the other person trying to drag them out and to get them to do some rebounding or movement or walk or something, like just some sort of movement can really have quite an impact on that shift of energy.
Yes, I agree with the movement. Like that is like my go-to. So for those who are listening and watching, if you're single and you're like, but I don't have anyone to do pep talk with me, well, please find your supportive group. It is so important to have the supportive group around you. And this really goes back to how you said it at first, the people that you hang around with, and letting go of those people that don't serve you anymore. Like it is so important. You gotta help yourself. And for those people who might be in a couple, like what you said, you know, like both parties at the time might feel 100%. I highly recommend people to start like at first, just ask people, how many percentage are you feeling today? If it's not 100%, then the other person can carry, you know, if let's say one party is 20, the other person can carry the 80. I learned that from Brene Brown. Like she illustrated so beautifully. So yeah, that's a few tips for you guys.
Really important as well when you're in a working relationship and, you know, a partnership of, you know, in a household as well. What you were saying as well about mentioning the people in your life and the people that might not be there for you in the right times, or that you don't feel like you can call, and those relationships that maybe you eventually grow out of because you do some work on yourself and you're at a different place. I think grieving those is probably the hardest thing, one of the hardest things to go through. And because for myself, my friendships are completely different from what I had in high school because of that reason, because I had very rapid growth and transformation on so many levels that who I was friends with in high school and at the end of school just didn't match me anymore at all. Like our interests, the ways we were feeling and thinking, what we consumed, you know, like drinking during the day. And learning to be okay with that and grieve those relationships is okay, because eventually you do start to find your people. Like, you know, I went to Dayne's meetup, and there's so many different ways you can find like-minded people now. You might not be able to do the meetups, but just in, you know, Facebook groups, or if you work in a place that revolves around those types of people. Like that's one of the big things that I wanted in my life, because I wasn't going to go and study naturopathy because that just didn't, you know, feel right for me. But working in a health food store, I've made those connections with so many different people that are in that, you know, same state as well. And the meetup, you do really find those people. So
yes. So like honestly, be brave. Like if you don't step out of your comfort zone, like you wouldn't have met Dayne. And also, like for those who are listening and watching who might be interested in Indi's personal story, well, please stay tuned because she's coming back on again. But yeah, that was beautiful. And so before, you know how you guys mentioned about the environmental issue, it's so amazing that you are both so passionate about it. I personally believe that every little bit helps. So what would you encourage everyone to really start doing?
I think one of the main things is taking note of what sort of waste you have and trying to minimize that as much as possible, and avoid putting stuff into like landfill, garbage bin. So one of the main things I noticed was that the majority of my bin was fresh produce, like offcuts, like the scraps basically. So, one of the ways that's encouraged is like you can make it into broths, but of course, how many times are you really going to do that? And there's only certain vegetables that you can use. So the main thing for me was then starting to compost, and being in an apartment, I wasn't going to have one in my back garden. Now we're very fortunate too, but that wasn't, the case for a long time. So something that everyone can do, I don't know what the impact has been with COVID now, but you can go on to sharewaste.com, maybe .au, or just Google share waste, and you can actually find different places to drop off your compost in your local area. So I started doing that, and that actually got me, my closest one was around the corner at the community garden in Armadale. And that actually, I guess encouraged me over time to then join the community garden. So yeah, there's so many benefits in that as well, of course, because I didn't have a garden at the time, and just even getting out in the sun, weeding and being in that environment was really, really healthy for me, I learned. So yeah, doing that, and also understanding all the different things that we can do with other waste. Like if you really go into it, I think on Planet Arc or like your local council, there are a whole list of other things that can be recycled that we don't know about. And sometimes it does take just that little extra bit of effort. You might have to find, like we have a place down the road that's near where we get our groceries at a health food store, and they accept things like light bulbs, batteries, or your dental hygiene products like toothpaste tubes. So I've been doing that sort of recycling as well for quite a while.
Amazing.
The other thing is, most people don't know all the soft plastic can be recycled, and it gets recycled in those big bins, funnily enough, at Coles and Woolworths, but we actually have one at our health food store up here, which is really handy. And that's, pretty much soft plastics of everything, including most Glad wrap, just all those plastic bags that food usually comes in and stuff. So being able to do that has cut out so much waste for us. And it does get made by a third party. It's not being taken by Coles or Woolworth. It's actually a third party who collects it. And what they do is they recycle it into, or they, I guess, upcycle it in a way to playground furniture and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have any toxic fumes or anything from being melted. And I'm not, I guess, to the extreme of, say, a zero waste lifestyle, because I just feel like that compromises health too much from everything that I've learned. Like, I know it's really, nice goal to have, but I think just trying to minimize it wherever possible, buying really low packaging stuff, especially like you don't want all your food wrapped in packaging and stuff, like your fresh food. It's really an unnecessary thing to get it. But we actually have to take out our garbage bin like once a month now, like our landfill garbage bin. So even just getting it down to that has been really, rewarding.
Well, for those who are listening and watching, please don't feel overwhelmed. Like, we all start somewhere.
No, exactly. And I definitely, started somewhere. I wasn't, just a few years ago, I wasn't doing any of this. So I can really empathize. And it is always a bit overwhelming at the start, but I didn't make all these changes in one go. So I think just starting with one of them and seeing how you go.
And also, like, while you're doing all these, you are helping the environment, and you are also making new friends and learning new things. And like I said, we all need to start somewhere, and every little bit helps. And when you're buying veggies, like, honestly, like, your food, they don't mind mingling together. I don't get the people who use the single-use plastic bags. Like, what is freaking boring? But anyways, like, you do you, whatever you're more comfortable with. It's okay to start small. What about with Dayne, what would be some food that you would suggest people to be more aware of
Food.
Cut out or consume more?
Yeah, that's a good one. What do people be? I think a really important one, like what we've done now, is that about, I'd say 85, maybe 90% of our diet, is food that we create. So we buy the organic produce and then we make that ourselves. So a big one is, I feel that people, if they can be, it just comes down to, again, tracking their spending, but how much you track on takeaway and eating out a lot. And so it's very different right now in Victoria with things so strict. And so therefore people are almost forced to eat more at home, which is great. Even though people are still taking takeaway consistently, I think the idea is like eating, doesn't matter what diet you believe in, supporting the local organic farmers and then buying the produce and cooking it yourself however you like it. And so whatever style you like, no matter how you cook it, but that is like a key to have as like the basis of your diet. And it can be, again, whatever diet that is suited for the person or whatever person they feel comfortable right now. So that is a key as well. But just also, the money that you spend on takeaway and food that's out, I think it's really key. Like, it's a lot of people aren't really conscious of how much they buy out and buy lunches or dinners or breakfasts, and it's constant. And so it's great to have that as a treat and as an occasional thing. So we do love a good brunch, and we enjoy that when things get to be reopened again eventually in Victoria. That's just something that we do enjoy, but it's not like our day-to-day life, and it's only as a treat. And so I think with food, when it comes to that, is that people starting to really appreciate and honor that part of food, and knowing that going and supporting those people is supporting your own body health as well as the planet and the farmers as well. And the farmers do a really good job, and they work really hard to get these really good organic produce for us. And so understanding that side of things and just doing your best to sort of create the food yourself. And it doesn't have to be fancy. We don't do things that fancy ourselves. We just buy quality produce, and then we just trying to keep it as minimal as possible. And so it's sustainable, it's economical, it's sustainable, it's all that. So people just be a lot more conscious of not eating out so much and using that more as a treat, I guess.
Yeah, you're right about the economical part. You will save so much money. Like, can you imagine like smashed apple on sourdough is like what, freaking $18?
Oh yeah.
Like, people have to think about it.
You have so much more control as well about the quality of food, because it's in a cafe and it looks nice, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the best quality. It's usually not organic. We now are like, we kind of can't have as good a breakfast as this like anywhere else, because we get to choose all the ingredients ourselves and what goes into it, and we're like, wow, this is so much better because we get everything that we want and the quality is there as well, and for a fraction of the price. So it's actually, I think that's the other thing to talk about, is the myth that eating organic has to be really expensive. I've definitely had that belief for a while, like while I wasn't working and I was just buying some Aldi organics here and there, but I really felt like I couldn't afford everything. But I think it comes down to your core things that you spend it on that really last. So like pantry staples that you can make lots of different things out of, make sure they're organic, and the produce as well, and eating seasonally, and maybe in certain seasons avoiding those that aren't in season or in short supply, because they tend to be the really expensive things per kilo. So I guess paying attention to that, and what is, I guess, a bit more affordable per kilo in organic vegetables. Things like carrots tend to be always quite cheap throughout the seasons, organic. So that's a really good staple. Generally broccoli, there's only like a very small window like in between seasons where it gets quite expensive. That's generally really affordable as well, and another big staple. And things literally things like all Asian greens, really, and all your rocket and stuff, focusing on mainly having fresh produce. And that's what I noticed when I put through like a customer's basket load of stuff. It's only very expensive when they're getting all the different packaged stuff. When you have a basket of things and a big bag of shopping, it's actually really economical when it's mostly fresh produce.
Yes. you both have brought up amazing points. Like what you said with the processed food. Honestly, I want people to start recognizing that honestly, processed food is not only it's bad for you, it's also like with all the packages and the ingredients are not amazing, and you really don't know where it's coming from. So I would say, like you said, you know, when you scan people's stuff, like all these packaged stuff, yeah, they will be more expensive because you're actually not paying for the food. You are paying for all these other things. And if you eat more whole food, you will actually get fuller and your body would actually love it more. And thirdly, we actually don't need to eat that much. It's just because sometimes when you're bored or I don't even know, like you just eat. So you just need to, again, track what you do. So yeah, I think we can talk about literally everything for a long time. Those who are listening and watching,
I want to add.
Sorry.
I was like, there's just so many things I want to add, but yeah.
Yes. But instead of you adding on, people can just honestly subscribe to your podcast and they will learn so much more. It's a wormhole that people can dive deep.
Yeah, nutrition's a big one for sure. And I think just overall, if people are a bit concerned about their immunity, one of the biggest things you can do is cutting down your sugar intake to, you know, about 20 grams a day. That's really good base level for anyone, no matter what your situation is or, you know, your own bio individuality. So yeah, just being really conscious of that. And when I say sugar, unfortunately, I mean all sugar, like maple syrup and agave and rice malt syrup, because that's getting snuck into a lot of different processed foods and being labeled as, you know, refined sugar free. But ultimately, it does the same amount of damage for our bodies as normal conventional sugar. So looking for alternatives. Honey does the same thing, but honey fortunately has a lot of benefits that sort of can outweigh like the antimicrobial and bacterial activity. So in very small amounts, for someone that doesn't have, say, a candida problem, honey in small amounts can be very beneficial as long as it's not heated. So not baking with honey, cooking with honey, even having it in a really hot drink can destroy some of the beneficial enzymes. And yeah, it can sort of cancel that out. So yeah, honey is a really interesting one, especially when you get really good quality sources. So
not the rabbit hole.
We are so many rabbit holes.
So yeah,
can't stop it.
Generally, if you get your honey from,
I can slowly.
Generally, if you get your honey from a health food store, you're pretty safe. But you know, not getting the mass-produced inorganic honey, as that can generally, you know, getting a raw honey that's not being heat treated, because otherwise it won't have those benefits.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for all these amazing tips, honestly.
Do you want other substitutions?
Maybe on your personal episode.
Yeah.
She won't stop.
It's okay. I love it. I just think that for those who are listening and watching, I feel like they're already really intrigued. Well, my last question for you both is, how do you think we can be there for each other in general?
Probably comes back to everything we've been sharing as well. Trying to do all the work, the inner work you can yourself. Because if you're the best version of yourself, as cheesy as that sounds, and if you've done the inner work yourself, then you can show up and be the best for others as well. So you can be of service to others because your cup is full. And so you're not just coming from a place of trying to get something from others. And so I think one of the best ways that we can be for others is to almost be for ourselves first, fill up that cup, and then you can be of complete service to others out there.
And you, Indi?
Yeah. So aside for everything I said about the little indirect impacts we have, you know, on all the people that we'll never meet through what we buy and what we do in the world, I think also trying to be of service where we can to other people in our community. So community service has been a big thing for me, and trying to get back into, whether that's, you know, doing stuff in the community garden or like an aged care place as well. But yeah, that's something that I think can really have much bigger effects than just on those people. You know, it sort of circles back around to yourself as well. And to continue on from what Dayne was saying is, you know, when you're that light and that present person that shows up in every sort of interaction you have a, you know, a positive impact on other people. And you know, you're that good person to be around. It's much different when you say you're around someone who's just always caught up in their own stuff and their own drama and, you know, always flustered and doesn't have really time to be present for you. So by you, doing the work on yourself and taking responsibility to process everything that's going on in your life, you'll be able to be there, much better for others.
Beautiful. I love it. I just want to tell people that when you do some kindness for other people, like for the community and etc., it will actually boost your confidence, because being generous is actually one of the things that help us to boost our mood. So yeah. And thank you for reminding people to take care of themselves so they can take care of other people. It is truly so important. Thank you both so much, and thank you, your dog. What's the name?
Leo. So that was actually another thing I did when I was trying to, I guess, see how I could help. Was I ended up fostering a dog. This is Leo. He became my dog because, you know, from the first day I had him, I don't think I could have given him back. He has a lot of social problems, but he's just very lovable once he trusts you. And
so
it's been a really rewarding experience.
Thank you, and I will speak to you next.
It is definitely a rabbit hole when it comes to the topic nutrition. Actually, when it comes to the topic about life, we're all here to live and learn, right? Maybe you are ready for a new adventure. Great! I'm so excited for you. Or maybe this interview has made you question and want to explore and want to be open-minded. That's amazing as well. I really love the tips that they have provided on how to live life, really. I personally love tracking things. I track my time, I track my money, I track on who I spend my time with. I just love tracking it. It gives me clarity, and it also helps me to live my life with my integrities and my values. If you haven't yet subscribed to Living Holistically with Dayne and Indi, please go do it now. You never know until you give it a try. The tool and the resource are there, so might as well check it out, right? I'm so excited for you to share your thoughts with me. Now don't forget to subscribe. Click the thumbs up button if you have loved it, and share it with someone, because you never know what they're going through, or maybe they would love to spice up their life and change their lifestyle. And remember, you're amazing and you are not alone. I will see you next time.